Hi everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to do a recipe video, and I am going to make sweet potato chili in the Instant Pot, and then I am going to make homemade apple crisp. So we're going to get right into the video. So I've done a little bit of prep before this video, and I already chopped up everything that needs to be chopped up, and I'll explain it as I go. So I hope you enjoy the video. So first, I used to make we're going to start with the apple crisp to get that going because that has to cook down a little bit. So first, I have 6 apples cut up that I just cut up. I skinned them and cut them up and put them in a bowl. So I'm going to start making for the apples. So I am going to add, if you have apple pie seasoning, you can use that. I don't have any, so I'm going to put a little bit of nutmeg and lots of cinnamon. And as I cook today, I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'm going to use some vanilla extract. I'm going to talk a little bit about how to lose weight on a plant-based diet. For the all the ingredients, I will put everything in the description box. So I'm going to stir up the seasonings in here, the spice. I use a lot of cinnamon, a little bit of nutmeg. If you have apple pie spice, then you can just use that and omit this. Some people like to put a little bit of lemon juice. I did not add any lemon juice to mine. I will use some applesauce in here once I get all the... So I'm going to make mine on the stove and let it cook while I'm making the other things. So it'll cook down for about 20 minutes. You can just get the apples softened and then put it in the oven to bake. I am making like a stovetop version of it today. So there's a lot of different ways you can make it. I'm just going to do mine on the stove today and let the apples reduce on the stove while I'm cooking the chili. For the topping for our apple crumble, I'm going to make some quick, easy granola using oatmeal. So that's kind of what that looks like. I'm going to add a little bit more cinnamon because I like mine very cinnamony. And a little bit more nutmeg. And I'm going to use a little bit of maple syrup in here to sweeten it. I would say about 2 tablespoons. I don't want it too sweet because I have the applesauce. But you want it sweet enough. And then we're just going to put this on the stove once I get it all mixed together. And then we'll make the topping in the oven. And then we'll get on to our chili. So as I cook today, I am going to talk about how to lose weight on a plant-based diet. Because there's a lot of people that are interested in being vegan or switching to plant-based. And I'm just going to kind of give you some tips that I used. I wasn't specifically... I was hoping for some weight loss, but for me it was more of just trying to get healthy, and I had a lot of fatigue and a lot of digestive issues. And so when I switched to a whole food plant-based diet, I was just tired and I wanted to just feel better. I just felt terrible. So I was hoping weight loss to come in it, and it came with it. So we're going to take this over to the stove, and I'm going to turn it on, and I'm just going to put the apples, and you can see how the apples look, nice and coated with seasoning. I'm going to just dump them in there. And these were, I think these were Gala apples that I chopped up. You can use whatever apples you like. It makes a nice batch. It will cook down. And then I have some apple juice. I usually use apple cider, but I didn't have any more. So I'm going to pour that in there. And pour a half a cup and kind of see how that does. And then go from there. So I'm going to just stir that in there and let this go ahead and cook on medium. And let it cook down. And if I need to add some more, I'm going to let it come to a boil. And if I need to add a little bit more of apple juice, I will. So that is and let that cook a little bit. I'm gonna wash this bowl out real quick. So now I just rinsed my bowl out, and I'm just gonna now make the granola that goes on top. So I'm gonna use 2 cups of rolled oats. Two cups makes a nice amount of granola, because you can use the granola in cereal. You can use it on top of fruit. You can kind of use it as cereal. If you add like raisins and things to it, you can kind of do a little bit of everything with this granola. So for me, I am going to actually use pumpkin pie spice in my granola, just to mix it up. Otherwise, you can still use apple. You can use the apple pie spice again. And I'll still add a little bit of cinnamon, but I won't add any nutmeg. And then I'm just going to stir it up really nicely. And then just kind of, I'll put all the recipe information in the description box. And then I will put a little bit of maple syrup for the sweetening for the granola as well. If you don't like a lot of cinnamon, you don't have to add a lot of cinnamon. That's just kind of how I flavor the granola, because I can use it as cereal. Put a little bit of vanilla, because I use this for other purposes besides the apple crisp. I just want to make sure it has good flavoring. If I just want to have it as a snack or for anything else. So let's talk about weight loss for a whole food plant-based diet. So one of the first things that I did when I decided to switch is I decided what I could not live without and what I could get rid of. So the first thing I did is I went through and I thought, okay, what is my normal breakfast? What do I usually have for breakfast? And add a little bit of maple syrup. And so for me, I was like, well, I was looking at different recipes, different recommendations, and I thought, okay, I can have oatmeal. So I found chocolate oatmeal, and then I thought, oh, I could have a smoothie that's whole food plant-based. So I picked 2 things, and then I thought about for the weekend, what could I do? I could have pancakes, because I could use oat flour for that. So I just went through and I made like a list of 4 or 5 different breakfasts that I wanted to switch between. Pancakes were a must because my husband likes pancakes, and I wanted to show that you can still have things like pancakes on a whole food plant-based diet. So we had pancakes on the weekend, and I also used grits as my other alternative for the weekend. So I would have grits with a vegetable on the side. But for the most part, I used a smoothie, or I used oatmeal. And I cannot eat oatmeal without some kind of sweetener, so I would use date syrup was my go-to, date paste, was my go-to sweetener. So you can see how that's nice and mixed in. So now I have preheated my oven to 375. So I'm gonna just go ahead and put this on the parchment paper, and we're gonna put it in the oven. Total of 20 minutes, 10 minutes on one side, and then flip it over, 10 minutes. So you can see how it looks. Try to spread it out, make sure it's as evenly spread out as I can, so that all the oats get kind of crispy. You don't want any, you don't want soft granola. So, all right, so we're just gonna throw this in the oven, set the timer for 10 minutes, and then we'll stir in our apples, and then we'll get going on our chili. Alright, we got 10 minutes on our granola. Okay, you can hear the apples are cooking up really nice over here. They're boiling. So that's kind of what you want to see. They kind of look caramely. The sauce looks caramely underneath there. And I am going to put the lid on this and let this just continue to cook. I am going to add the rest of the apple juice just because I have a lot of apples in here this time. Last time I made it, my apples weren't as big, so I had to use more. So, and we're going to just let that cook down into some nice apples. Okay. So now we are all done with that part for now. Okay. So now let's talk about our chili, and then we'll get back to some more tips for losing weight for whole food plant-based diet. So I have an Instant Pot here. My Instant Pot, I don't know what it's a Duo SV. This is the one I have. People have different ones. So this is the one that I have. So I have a saute mode on mine. So this is the best thing ever. So if you don't like cooking in like a slow cooker because you're like, oh, I like to saute my vegetables, well, this you can saute. So we're gonna start off our chili with sauteing our green peppers. I have green peppers, green onions, and chives in here. You can use green peppers and onions. I cannot use onions right now. My stomach doesn't like them right now, so I'm using green onions and just the green part and chives. So I'm gonna just put those in there, and we're gonna saute these for a couple minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, and I'm gonna get some garlic as well. So we got our saute mode on. It is good to add a little bit of liquid. My green peppers were frozen, so I am not adding too much liquid because it'll use that. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of minced garlic in here. That's about 2 teaspoons. And so basically, just like you saute on the stove, this will saute an Instant Pot. So we want to just saute that. So tip number 2 for losing weight on a whole food plant-based diet. So the first one was pick your recipes that you like, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, things that you know you can eat. I looked at YouTube. I had recipe books. Forks Over Knives was one of my bases, but Dr. Greger, How Not to Die and How Not to Diet were my other 2 cookbooks that I kind of went through and picked recipes from. So that was one of the things that I did. So I picked recipes and I just try to keep it simple. The second tip was I decided to implement fasting. Everybody does fasting very differently. I'm going to tell you how I did it. For me, I just gave myself a window to eat from. I wanted to make sure I went at least 8 to 12 hours at night without eating until my next eating time. So for me, I, at the time, worked 12-hour shifts. So during my working time is when I usually ate. So I ate usually at 10 a.m. and I would stop eating anywhere between 7 and 8 because of my work schedule. So I would eat in between that window, and then I would fast from dinner, 7 or 8, when whatever dinner was, and then I would not eat again until 10 o'clock. So that's what I did. And the reason why I chose to do that is because there was a lot of research out there. For me, I was in a pre-diabetic range, and so they talked about controlling your blood sugar, and so that was one of the ways I had researched, and it said that it could help to control your blood sugar if you're giving your body time to rest in between eating. The other reason why is because it also allowed my body, with digestive issues, allowed my body to relax and to be able to digest my food and have a little bit of that relaxation period in between eating. So and that worked for me. So I didn't have any problems. So that's what I did. So that's my second tip. If you are able to do it, even if it's just for 8 hours, if you say I'm not going to eat after dinner for 8 hours, they say try to eat at least 3 hours before you go to bed, and that way your body can focus on sleeping. You can sleep better that way. And that's exactly what I did. I usually didn't go to bed until like 10 or 11. Again, depending on my work schedule. So that is another thing that I really recommend, and that I think that helped me as well. The other thing, my tip number 3, is drink lots of water. A lot of times we think that we're hungry when truly we're thirsty. So the recommendation is to drink half your body weight. So take your body weight, divide it by 2, and try to get that, make that as a goal as how much fluid you should drink as far as water. And if you're drinking like a tea, that counts. So in the morning, I started off in the morning on my way to work, I drank at least 20 ounces of water or 16 ounces of water before on my way to work. During work, I did my best to try to eat in between running around. I had a very, very busy day once I got to work. So I would, before lunch, before my breakfast and my lunch and my dinner, I would drink 16 ounces of water. So because I don't get a lot of time to drink at work. So when I went to right before breakfast, I would drink 16 ounces of water before I ate breakfast. That helped me to eat less for breakfast, but I could always finish my breakfast. And I did the same thing for lunch, and I did the same thing for dinner. So that helped me to get my water in. And then if I got hungry after I got done with dinner, I drank all the way up until it was time for me to go to bed. So water is going to be your best friend. Tea, I did not use any kind of sweeteners, any kind of things to add to my water. Water is what I usually drink, so I didn't do any of that. You can use lemon. You can do, people do like cucumber and lemon. You could do that to spice up your water. But for me, I just drank water, and that was fun. And I would do green tea. I would do green tea if I really needed something different. I would do a green tea. So drinking water, that's my third tip. My fourth tip is to really try to minimize the processed foods. So really try to stick to the whole foods. And this is including like oat flour and almond flour, which they're as less processed than other things, but I really just tried to minimize it. If I did make a dessert, which I am a dessert person, I would try to use whole oatmeal, or I would blend the oatmeal a little bit, but I tried to minimize that during the periods when I was just trying to reset my body, because I didn't want to trick my body to think that I was doing to kick cravings. So that was the other thing that I did, and I tried to minimize the amount of sugar that I use as well, because if you eliminate those processed foods, a lot of times those are food triggers for us. Chips, yes, you can make chips in the air fryer or in the oven, but I tried to minimize those things and just really stick to whole food, plant-based, so I could really train my body to like whole foods and not just try to make vegan substitutes and whole food substitutes just to try to get through. I really wanted my body to really start to like eating things whole. So instead of having potato chips, I didn't have potato chips probably in my first year. Well, maybe I would say my first 6 months instead of a year, because if I went out somewhere, I would have like corn chips if I was out, and so I really did. And so those are cooking really nice. I'm gonna turn the fire down just a little bit. I'll finish cooking those. So that was tip number 4, is to try to limit even date paste and maple syrup, trying to limit it to as little as you can. I can't eat oatmeal without it, and I can't make dessert, and I always made a dessert. That's tip number 5. So always have some type of dessert. Whether my dessert at the time when I first started, my dessert was apples and almond butter, apples and sunflower seed butter. I always try to have some kind of dessert. Black bean brownies was a go-to that I made. I would always find out to have some kind of dessert so that when I really was craving something, I had it, so that I wouldn't go and want to buy chocolate from somewhere else. So I did make sure I made sure I had some kind of dessert or some kind of idea of dessert that I had planned for the week. And sometimes I would eat them, sometimes I wouldn't. But there was so black bean brownies was one of my desserts, go-to desserts. The apples, fruit is a dessert. So fruit was my dessert. The other thing I would make is peanut butter cookies. I make peanut butter or almond butter cookies, because those you can do with just some maple syrup or date paste and some peanut butter without having to do too much to it. So you can see this is sauteing really nicely. I'm gonna let them saute for just a little bit longer, and then I will start adding some seasoning. So tip number 5 is always plan for a dessert. Have fruit in your house. Have something, nice cream, which is like frozen bananas that I used to put in a blender. Smoothies would sometimes be my dessert. So make sure you have something sweet when you're having those sweet cravings. That's tip number 5. Tip number 6, meal prep. You cannot do this without meal prepping and planning. So I I did not cook on the days I went to work. At that time, I was working 3 12-hour shifts. So I only cooked when I wasn't at work. And usually on the weekend, it was just kind of leftovers. So our granola is ready to be turned over, stirred. And I'll take it out and show you how it's looking there. So we're just gonna, it's looking good. We're just gonna stir it and flatten it back out. And we're gonna cook it for another 10 minutes. And then by the time that's done, our apples will probably be done as well. And our chili will be halfway done. Okay, so I'll put that back in the oven. And another 10 minutes. Okay, perfect, okay. So you can hear sauteing really good. I could have probably added a little water to it at the end, but that's okay. We're gonna now add our seasoning and into there. I'm gonna add a little bit of water. Just a little bit. All right. So you can see that that really sautés very nicely. So I'm gonna use some all-purpose, some salt-free all-purpose seasoning first. And I am very generous with seasoning because that's my tip number 6. Season your food to your liking. Anytime you're switching your diet, you're getting rid of things, you have to be able to eat the food that please season. So that's what I did. I seasoned my food based on what I liked. If I found a recipe that I liked, I went ahead and was very generous with the seasoning. So that make sure that I could really eat the food. That's very important. So all-purpose seasoning, onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, about 2 tablespoons, paprika, probably about a tablespoon of paprika, smoked paprika, about 2 tablespoons of chili powder. And this thing sautés so good that I'm going to take the tops off because otherwise the smoke clogs up the. So we use about 2 tablespoons of the chili powder as well. I'm going to add a little bit of liquid. And then I'm going to go ahead and add our sweet potatoes. So this is a sweet potato chili. So I chopped up, I had little sweet potatoes, so I chopped up about 5, they were small, so about 5 of them, made about 3 to 4 cups, and then I cut up 3 carrots to put in here as well. So I have sweet potato and carrots in here, my sweet potato chili. So we're gonna let these saute for a couple minutes. Just to make sure that the seasoning is well mixed into our, so you can kind of see how that looks. The seasoning, the sweet potatoes, and the carrots. You want to make sure you try to get them as even as you can. I did the best I can. So we're going to let those saute for a couple minutes. Throw in our tomatoes and about 4 cups of water. You can use vegetable broth if you like. I didn't have any vegetable broth here, so I just used water. But I have enough seasoning. And I'm not going to cook it with salt, but when I was talking about the tip is to season, I may put a little bit when I'm at the table because I want to make sure I have a little bit of chili, should have a little bit of a saltiness to it. So if you use vegetable broth, that could help to add a little bit of, I usually get low sodium, but you don't want a lot of hidden salt in your food. That's one of the things that it can cause your body to hold on to water. So be mindful of, of that when you're making your recipes. That's why A lot of the things that I get, the tomatoes that I got have no salt added. The beans that I got have no salt added. And the seasonings that I use don't have any salt added to it. So we're just going to let these saute for about 3 to 4 minutes. And I'm just going to continuously stir them, just to try to keep them from sticking. And then I'm going to put in, so I am using the diced fire roasted tomatoes with no salt. Again, you can use whatever kind you like, but I like the fire roasted because they just have a little bit of flavor that I really like. And then I'll add 4 cups of water. I'm going to add about half of this now as I saute it. And I'm going to put in my tomatoes. Now, you don't have to saute. It'll still taste good without sauteing. And you can just dump this all in there and close the lid. But I think it adds a little bit more flavor when you saute it. So before I put the lid on, I'm going to just let that cook up on saute mode and kind of mix the flavors on. So I do have the beans that I'm going to add. Now, you can add this all at one time. But I have not mastered the timing exactly when I put the beans in there, because especially with the sweet potatoes, I want the sweet potatoes and the carrots to really cook because they're hard, and my beans are coming from a can. So I'm going to cook this on soup mode for 10 minutes, and then I'm going to naturally release it, and then I'm going to add the corn and the beans, which are already pre-cooked, right in here after this cooks and pressure cooks for 10 minutes to make sure those sweet potatoes and those carrots get done. So we're going to do that, and then the chili will be all nice and good. Let this saute just a couple more minutes. Yep. So you can see how this looks before I put the lid on there. So this is what it looks like right now. So we're going to go ahead and cancel the saute mode. You're going to hear it kind of boiling in there. When I cancel the saute mode, we're going to put our lid on. Seal it out, and then we're going to put it on. I do have a chili mode, but I'm going to use the soup mode and take it down to 10 minutes. And this will have to build pressure on it, so it takes a little bit longer than 10 minutes, but it just has to build the pressure. So we'll let this cook for 10 minutes, and then we will come back and add the beans, and then we'll take a look at our apple crisp. Okay, so let's take a look at our dessert. So we have our apple crisp. The apples are done, they've cooked down. You can see how that looks. So that is the base of our apple crisp. And then our granola, nice and brown and crispy. I cooked for a total of 20 minutes. So when the granola got finished, I went ahead and turned the apples off and turned the fire off. So this will be, we'll put that together for our dessert apple crisp. So our chili should be finishing up here in a moment. So I left off at tip number 6. So let's go to tip number 7. Tip number 7 for weight loss for a whole food plant-based diet is watch your oils. I do not use any liquid oil at all. Canola oil, olive oil, I don't use any of those oils. They're empty calories as far as I'm concerned. I saute with vegetable broth or water. Where I get my fats from, because fats are important. I use chia seeds, I use hemp seeds, I use sunflower, so you can use nuts. I use raw nuts, again, because I watch the salt. So get your fat from whole food sources. But if you're trying to lose weight and you're at a plateau, if you're eating a lot of nuts, putting a lot of chia and flaxseed and things, just kind of keep an eye on that. It wasn't until I plateaued that I kind of even thought about that. Or if you're eating a lot of sunflower seed butter or almond butter or peanut butter, and you're at a plateau, think about your fats. But as far as liquid fats, I don't use any of those. They're empty calories. Tip number 8 is on a whole plant-based diet, you need to eat. You eat twice as much of eating whole food plant-based than you do. So I didn't count calories. I ate until I was full. I had like one snack, but it was just because of work. I was so kind of structured, but I had a big breakfast. People were like, oh, you're going to eat all that oatmeal? Yeah, I ate. So that's the key, is do not starve yourself. Do not count calories. Simply eat until you're full. And I had to learn what it was to be full. When I thought I was hungry, I first drank water to see, and then I kind of waited. And if I was still hungry, then I ate more. So that's the other thing, making sure you're eating enough food. Otherwise, you'll kick your body into starvation mode. Tip number 9 is exercise. As far as for me, it wasn't until I started losing weight and was probably a month or two in before I had enough energy. And so once I had enough energy, I just found things that I like to do. I would go for a walk. I didn't do anything. I didn't join a membership or anything of that nature. Mr. and Mrs. Muscle on YouTube, her videos I used, she had like 10-minute full body workouts that I could do in 10 minutes. And I just I did that, or I walked. And then the pandemic came, and then I found hip hop step online. So Get Fit with DG, hip hop step. I only exercise on the days that I was off, because on my work days I would get anywhere from 10,000 to 15,000 steps. So I only did that, and I did 10 minutes to 30 minutes, but walking, just something light. You don't have to do anything strenuous or join a gym or do anything like that. And my last tip is making sure you get enough rest. Your body needs to rest. We have so much going on, everybody, in our lives. Our body needs to be able to relax, and to be able to let some of that stress kind of go down. And so sleeping is very important. So I recommend at least 7 hours of sleep. So I made sure I went to bed. I set my iPhone to tell me what time I go to bed to get 7 hours of sleep. And I really tried to get 7 hours of sleep or more if I could. So those are my 10 tips for losing weight on a whole food plant-based diet. Our chili is now done. And so I think I'm going to go ahead and cancel this. I said I was going to do a natural release, but I'm going to do a quick release. So when you do a quick release, you have to be very careful, because this Instant Pot is pressurized. So I use a spoon. You can use whatever you want. And I release the vent here, and you can see. So I just let all the pressure, I wait until all the pressure has been released, and then we'll take the top off. So you need to be very careful if you're not used to using an Instant Pot. Be very careful, making sure the steam can go somewhere that and it's not, you don't burn yourself, and never touch the nozzle. And so you can see this is the pressure cooker, so it has a lot to release. And you'll know when it's released when the little metal stopper goes down. And then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and add in our, I use black beans and kidney beans for this. You can use whatever beans you want. You can use dark kidney beans, pinto beans. So I use a can of black beans and a can of red kidney beans, and then I have corn. So we'll switch the pot over to saute mode to let it kind of cook. And we'll add those, we'll stir in our beans and our corn, and then we'll let it cook for 5 minutes, and then our chili is done. And so while we're doing that, we'll go ahead and plate our apple crisp, and dinner will be done in about 30 minutes. I can usually make a meal in about 30 minutes. So we'll stir in our last couple ingredients for the chili. My little stopper doesn't always go down, so once all the pressure releases, I'll kick it down. And it'll tell you, well, the pressure's down. It won't let you kick it down unless all the pressure is down. go. So the nice thing about Instant Pot, if you didn't know, it has a little holder for the lid. So you can kind of see it was, there's our chili. Our sweet potatoes are not mushy. Our carrots are not mushy, but they're nice and soft. So that's what we wanted to do. That's why we didn't, we wanted to make sure those got done. So let's go ahead and add our beans and our corn. So I had black beans and kidney beans, dark red kidney beans. We're going to add those. And I just rinsed them off from the can. I use no sodium. And we're going to switch this to saute mode. And then we're just going to let the beans get in the corn cook in there for just a couple minutes. And our chili, here's our sweet potato chili. So a nice easy recipe. It took about a total of like 15 minutes. It took about 5 minutes for the pot to reach pressure. So if you're trying to time that out, the chili will take about 20 minutes total. 5 minutes to reach pressure, 10 minutes to cook, and then about 3 to 5 minutes to release pressure. So we'll just let this saute and cook for 5 minutes, and then we will spoon it into a bowl and eat it. So now let's go over and look at our apple crisp and how I put it together. So I use these little ramekin dishes for, so basically when we're gonna have dessert, I'm gonna just take a nice spoonful of the apples. I like a lot of apples in mine, so this makes about 3 to 4 servings, depending on. And then I'm gonna just sprinkle on the granola. You can add raisins to it if you like it. I did put a little bit of maple syrup on the granola. So there was syrup in the apples and there was syrup in the granola. So for us, this usually makes about 3 nice big ones. All right, now we'll go ahead and add our granola. And there you go. There is our dessert, our apple crisp. It's a nice treat. No processed flour on there, a nice way. You can, one of the things I mentioned earlier is you can bake this in the oven. So I have made it before. The Forks Over Knives, the current edition has actually an apple, I don't think they call it apple crisp, but it's like an apple crisp or apple pie. It has a crust on the bottom of it, and then it has a granola topping where they use almond butter or sunflower seed butter for this, and they put it in the oven. So you can do that, cook the apples down and then put it in the oven and bake it all together if you don't want to do it separately. But like I said, I wanted to use the granola for something else, so throughout the week. So I just do it, easy way to do it, just do it like this. So this is an alternative way to do it. So let's we'll let our chili cook for another 4 minutes, and the chili will be done. So this is what our sweet potato chili looks like. I think you'll enjoy it. Let me know what you think about this recipe. Any comments about what you would like to see for the next video, let me know. I just kind of am thinking about things that I think are quick and easy, or things that people like to eat. But if you have any recommendations, please let me know, and I'll be glad to make a video based on that. So I hope you guys enjoy the video. The chili will be done in 4 minutes. I'm gonna let it cook for 4 minutes just to warm up our beans and our corn, and it's all done. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to like it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with anybody you think that it could help. All right, until next time, I'll see you guys.